I think I know most every one of you here. I am a senior graduating, and one of the reasons I wanted to speak was because I'm going into youth ministry, and just gaining this experience of speaking with you guys is just super impactful. And one of the reasons I want to go into youth ministry is just because I've seen the impact my leaders have had in my life and how they've just directed me to God. I heard it through a lot of you seniors saying what you're going to miss about Thrive. And I would just love to be that person for them, and let alone get paid for it. So yeah, and then another reason I wanted to speak was just because when I spoke in at H2O, it was just so awesome to see how many of you guys just came up to me and said how much you appreciated my testimony and how much it just spoke into your guys' lives. So tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about suffering, and so yeah, I'm going to before we begin, I'm just going to open us in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this night where we just get to meet outside, and I pray that you would just be with me as I speak. I pray that you would just speak through me and just calm any nerves I have. Amen. So I'm going to start off with a little bit more of a light story of suffering. So I was with my two friends, Josiah and Josue, who graduated last year. We had just finished cleaning the church, doing Josiah's job, and we were headed to my place in Dallas, and it's about a 20-minute drive, but we decided to stop in Dallas and get some snacks at the West Salem Safeway. And so we go there, we pick up some energy drinks and some spicy chips, and then we find habaneros, and they're dirt cheap. We bought 3 of them for like 28 cents, and we get into the car, and it's about a 20-minute drive from that Safeway to my house, and they dare me to eat one there, and I just had that energy drink to cool my mouth down. So I was like, you know what, let's do it, full send. And so I eat it, 30 seconds goes by, not a problem. But a minute goes by, I'm dying. My mouth is on fire, I'm drinking that energy drink, and then Josue eats one, and same story, he's dying. We both probably had our energy drinks gone in 5 minutes, and we had our mouths out the windows like dogs, just trying to cool our mouth down a little bit. And Josiah didn't pop one because he was driving, and we needed to get home safely. And so we're about 2 blocks out from my house, and then there's one left, and I was like, I'm not going to waste it. So the whole thing relapses, but this time I have milk. I chug probably around a half a gallon, and I eat ice cream, but that all came back up an hour later, and I'm just there vomiting, and it's over. I threw up some Subway from earlier in the day, and it was bad. But during this time, I've just done a lot of stupid stuff in my life like this. But one of the unique things I found in this time was it was nice to have Josue eating that habanero and dying with me. When we go through suffering, it is just so much better to go through it with people. We heard from Hope, her story with Seth and Evelyn, how when she opened up, it was just so much easier. It is just better to walk through life with people. There are a lot of suffering comes in a lot of different ways. Some examples of suffering might be struggling to keep your grades up, being stuck inside during COVID, and it just looks different for everyone. I'm gonna kind of my depression that I said at H2O. Last year, I went through a time of just depression and just trying to find if life was worth it. And so it was the fall of 2019, and I remember there was just numerous nights where I didn't tell anyone for a while that I was struggling with these thoughts and just finding value in the life. But I remember there was one night in particular when, after Thrive, I wondered if I'd make it home safely, if I would just go off the bridge. I honestly don't know why I didn't, but I thank God that I didn't. And about 6 to 8 months later, I told some of my life group leaders, and they pointed me to God and showed me just how much He loves me, and that even though life is tough, we don't have to do it alone. And so, depression, while I did defeat it, it does come back every once in a while, but it's out in the open now. It's way easier to tell my friends when I'm just struggling with these thoughts. The Bible also talks a lot about suffering and what it looks like. In Matthew 26, we see that Jesus goes through a list of different sufferings. We see that Judas, one of the 12 disciples, sells Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, which would have been equivalent to what a slave would have been sold for in those days. We see that another disciple of Jesus, Peter, denies Jesus, knowing Jesus 3 different times within 24 hours. And before Jesus heads to the cross, when he needs his disciples most, he asks them to pray with them, and they turn their backs and just fall asleep. When Jesus needed his friends most, they were not there for him. Jesus was fully man. He suffered just like you and I do. He faced trials, but the difference between Jesus and us is he didn't have to face these trials. He didn't have to come down and die on the cross and go through all this suffering. But he wanted to create but he wanted to do it, but he knew that we were worth it. During this time, Jesus wasn't the only one who suffered. In the book of Hebrews, we see a little bit more suffering. And the book of Hebrews was most likely written to Jewish people to challenge them to stay strong in their faith despite hardship going on. In Hebrews 10:32 through 34, it says, should I move? What? Cool. It says, I lost my spot. Oh, there we go. Remember those early days after you had received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. Sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecution. At other times you stood side by side with those who were so treated. You suffered along with those in prison and joyfully accepted the confiscation of your own property because you knew that you yourself had better and lasting possessions. The Roman government wasn't a fan of Jesus, and therefore they weren't a fan of his followers. They persecuted them, and they were not treated right. They were not treated well. Naturally, this made his followers wonder, is a relationship with Jesus worth it? What is there to gain? And in Hebrews 4:14 through 16, we see why it's worth it. It says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. In these verses, we see that Jesus was the high priest, and during those times, a high priest was someone who would go to the temple and make sacrifices on behalf of the people, and he prayed on behalf of the people and connected them to God. And during that time, this passage would have meant a lot to the Jews. They would have clearly understood why Jesus being a high priest was important. When Jesus became our high priest, he became our sacrifice and gave up his own life so that we could have a personal relationship with God. Following Jesus doesn't mean life will be peaceful and easy. We will face times of suffering, but we can go through that suffering with the people around us and with God. Comfort, I don't know if I said this earlier, but comfort means more when it comes from someone else that can relate to what you're going through. Josue was able to relate to my mouth burning on fire. People related to hope. And if this is true, Jesus can relate to us best because, one, he has gone through the suffering he has faced trials just like we have faced them when he was on this earth. And Jesus, he will always be there. I've had people I've opened up to, and it's been great. They've helped guide me through life. But I've also had people leave me. And with God, I know that he'll always be there for me, and I can face all my trials with him. I want to end tonight with a couple questions. If you are a Christian, I want you to think about this. Are you going through any suffering alone? Are you facing battles that you could face with people around you and with God? And if you are not a Christian, I just want to leave you with this. What is keeping you from saying yes to God? Is it doubt, fear, wonder? Just please consider talking to one of the leaders or myself. Thank you, guys.